in this video, I'm going to be talking about Jan and Mark. I've decided to put these two characters together because there's a lot of similarities that I would say, especially with the function of the characters and things like that. But I will try to still separate both characters as we're going through, especially when we're getting to performance skills and design skills, because there's just a couple of subtle differences. But let's start with the function of these characters. I'm just going to do that. That's a little bit. So, Jan and Mark are the comedy duo. There's not many characters that are innately funny, that have the punchlines written into what they say. But these two, with the banter that's between them, with the finish each other's sentences and the nature of what's going on, they kind of serve as that comic relief. And because as well, they are the first characters we are introduced to, the only characters we ever see in the street, it kind of gets us as an audience to understand the whole play through these two. Okay? They also give us lots of key bits of information. So let's start with the street scenes as an idea. These street scenes, they talk about someone being dead in the first one. They talk about somebody not going in the second one, which we realise is Brian, not going to the police station. They talk about Kathy finding them in the woods, talk about Adam being found in the woods, and then they talk about she's gone, Leah leaving. They are the narrators. They literally tell you right at the start of each act that what is going to happen in the act, the events in a way. So it's reminding us as an audience, here's what they're going to talk about. Let's then look at the relationships rather than trying to understand the plot. Because a lot of this is about like the pecking order and understanding the plan and the cover up and all of that kind of thing. So by kind of prefacing it with what is happening in each act through the street scenes, it's piquing our curiosity because we don't know who exactly or what exactly at the start, but we know that someone or something is dead. We know that someone's not going. We know that someone's left. We know that someone has been found. And it kind of strings us as an audience along with the journey. So, narrators. And that narration continues as they tell us what happened to Adam, especially with the horrific details and the way they're playing it off. This is where your performance skills as these characters are going to come in really, really massively. Because of those short, sharp words of, we was laughing and crying as well, you know, the finishing each other's sentences, those kind of things help us as an audience understand the complexity of this situation and how the group kind of felt safe when everyone was included, but when you step back and realise what they've done, it's that kind of second guessing. Now, Jan, out of the two, she is the one that basically reflects a little bit more than Mark during that bit. But also, she's the one that Mark is having to tell everything to. Like, she almost doesn't believe him sometimes. So, Mark is a little bit frustrated, but he shares the details. Jan questions everything. That means that she's the one that's picking up on the fact that Adam was crying, the fact that, you know, they were punching him and it was funny, but it was like half an hour, 40 minutes in the face. So she questions everything, not just Mark, but the actions as well. So Mark and actions. But they have each other's backs. Now, in terms of our performance skills, because of their closeness, stage space, they are going to be close to each other. The proxemics could show a couple of different interpretations. Some people think that they're best mates. Some people think that they're maybe a couple as well, because it's kind of believed that Leah and Phil are a couple, so maybe Jan and Mark are also a couple. But their proxemics are close either way. Okay. You can also have it that they're backing each other up. Also, with their stage space, I would have it that they are looking around to the group and to each other. That eye contact is going to be massive for these guys. They almost have their own secret language with the way that they look at each other, especially for some of the other scenes where they don't actually talk that much. For example, they don't really talk that much in Act 2 because they're only in towards the end of it. They don't talk that much in Act 3. In terms of their space in the pecking order, I should say, they're like towards the bottom-ish, I would say, because they're like the gossipers, because they, you know, we find out don't get invited to the parties and things like that. They go and do the errands. They go and find Brian who's hiding in the woods. Bottom-ish, kind of similar to like Lou, I would say. They're just there, but they're not the bottom of the pecking order. Anyway, back to their performance skills. Vocally, I think that it is fast-paced due to the nature of the writing. And I also think that if you're playing as Mark, you're going to show that frustration so that your intonation and again, change of pace is going to be key. So when he's getting more frustrated, saying, it's not a joke because it's not funny. If it was funny, it would be a joke, but it's not a joke. Saying those lines, it's showing that kind of ranting, like he's saying it again and again. And the intonation exaggerating because they say a lot of the same words like, oh, dead, dead, dead. Making sure that each word sounds slightly different. So you can also, with that, use your tone of voice, but also change your inflection. So remember, tone is the emotion you attach to it. So a frustrated tone would be great for Mark, but then the inflection is where you're going up or down in pitch to kind of show your emphasis. So maybe he inflects down when he's saying something to make him sound more serious. Okay, so that is the emphasis. We've got the intonation there, but you can show that in multiple ways. If we're talking about Jan here, she is a little bit more slow and thinking because she has this questioning nature about her. So I would actually have a contrast to juxtapose Mark a little bit. Yes? No. To show that she is confused. So a confused tone would be great. And I also think when she's saying these when she's questioning the actions, her inflection, that down, that serious, like dark, like he was crying as well. Bringing it down is going to really emphasize that to the audience, because as they are narrating, they need to make sure that what they're being said is being very clearly said. Okay. In terms of physical skills then, there's going to be a lot of, I think, facial expressions here to show how funny it is, and the laughing, and then there might be the drop of the face. And to have that contrast, especially in the longer bits, will actually make lots and lots of opportunities for you to talk about it and get marks. In terms of the street scenes as well, because it's very likely that a street scene will come up, you can also show the performance, the physical skills with Mark showing his frustration. And with that, I would have that kind of open, sigh, heavy body language in a way to show that he's saying it again and again. So it's repetitive, heavy movements. If I just put heavy for our notes there. And Jan, now hers is going to be slow, methodic thinking. So it's going to show that thinking with her gestures. And a slow pace. Fabulous. So to carry on with this idea of them being close, let's talk about where they would be on the stage. So if we're talking about staging, as the only characters in the street scene, it's your decision where you're showing that street scene on stage. A lot of people, if they're using a proscenium arch, will allocate a small section of the stage just for the street scene. So actually the blocking, like where they're standing, and the sight lines is very, very minimal. They're just in like that one little bit. So the movement's going to be minimal for this, but maybe for the staging, you're orientating where the street is. You might have things transitioning, like the change of locations, like let's say you're going more like the original production, that you've got a cycle of armour at the back with a projection on and minimal stage furniture, so it's actually just blank. Your staging might be that they are centre stage for those moments. I also think another key moment that they are centre stage for is when they're talking about Adam. So that's for the street, and when they're talking about Adam. The rest of the time, they are in the back corner. They're like leaning against a tree, gossiping with each other. And I think that having them visible but on the edge of the group, it shows their place in the pecking order, but also shows their relationship. Like they're part of the group, but they're with each other as a priority. You also need to think about what Richard says towards the end of the play, that Jan and Mark take up shoplifting. They're really good at it, get you anything you want. But even throughout this, where the rest of the group have abandoned each other, Jan and Mark are still together. Okay? So that's a really good thing to put in the function as well, while we're here. Sorry, Mark. Anyway, so let's then talk about set. So we just mentioned there that maybe they're leaning. As they are in the street scene, you might also have them interacting with some of the elements there. So let's put props and stage furniture here too, because these kind of go together. If you're doing the street scene where actually they're stood at a bus stop, you could show them, again, that leaning, that casual physical skills, but show them interacting with that stage furniture. Like maybe they're sat on a fake wall, for example, or sat on the bus stop bench. And also, I would think about litter here. Have like Jan with a bag of crisps or something, that maybe these gestures that she's thinking she might be eating too. Now, I know that you might want to draw that kind of physical skill to fill, but actually I think the litter, or at least them like, finishing a drink as they're talking, it gives this sense of like this conversation has been going on for a while, like they've got off the bus after school and they're walking down the street back home. But also it gives this sense of they don't care for the environment. They're like the rest of the group with the drinking and the smoking, that actually maybe there's a bin on stage, and then rather than putting their rubbish in the bin, they put it on the floor. It just shows that risky behaviour there as well. So those kind of things linked together. If we're talking about the wood scenes, I suppose it's up to you where you're putting them on stage. Like we said, away, but maybe something to lean on too. If we're talking, this is cool, about sound and music, you should consider having some sound effects in the street. This idea that they're being watched, so you could have like the mechanical whirl of a camera moving, or you could have a police siren flashing past. That could also link to the lighting. That fear that is referenced so many times. Also that like ASBO kind of culture that was going on in the context of the time, you could show that through the street scenes. They could be representing that whole teenage stereotype at the time. That they're hanging on street corners, and for the costumes, I think these guys would be in hoodies to literally show that stereotype there as well. So the siren is the sound of music here as well, and then we put like cars, that kind of street style noise as well. Now for Mark's monologue, I would consider non-diegetic. Remember, that means that the actors cannot hear it for his monologue. This is when he's talking about what happened to Adam. Having some somber, maybe instrumental with, what's the phrase? Basically like the horror filmy kind of music. I want to say deranged chords, but I know that's not it. Not music teacher, sorry. Minor chords, we'll go for that, like that lower kind of, maybe even like a cello kind of somber atmosphere through the music to elevate Mark's performance of Adam. Okay. Just need to put here that we need to contrast funny and the serious. And I think the music is going to help with that as well. So we've talked about lighting. You could, with the monologue as well, put a spot on. You could put a spot with a gobo of a grill on it, so that when he's talking and he's like wobbling and that, and he's acting it out a little bit, you could have the grill shape on him. So he's kind of reliving it through Adam's perspective, kind of like Jan is making him consider while they're giving back that feedback. Oh, another thing to consider. This is what I get for doing 2 in 1. I keep going all over the place. I'm sorry. Hopefully you're keeping up. Jan isn't there when Adam dies, because Mark takes over at that point. So that's why she questions things that are going on. She was there when the group did all the horrible stuff, but not when he went up the grill, but only because she had to go home. So that kind of shared responsibility, maybe Jan's kind of a little bit on the edge of that, but maybe that's why Mark's protecting her a little bit too. Just something to mention as well. Right, costume, and then this video will be done. Costumes for these guys, we've talked about hoodies. I think as well, with your colours, I would have colour blocking here. So like a solid, I like this example here, like a solid red hoodie, you know, to show that connotations of death and things like that as well. So colour red is a good one. I also like how in these sketches here that their uniform is like a little bit messy. It shows they don't care, they're a little bit funny, you know, but they're kind of following up with the rules. I also like how in this picture here of this version of Jan, they've given Jan a low rise skirt, because again that was in the fashion of the times. But yeah, I think the hoodies is the main factor there, because you can link it to hoodie culture, the Asbo culture, Tony Blair, students being the problem, all of that fun context. So hopefully this has been really useful. Like I said, it's been a little bit all over the place, but they're so similar that it just made sense to do these two together. So hopefully that helps. Please watch the rest of the character series to make sure that you are prepared for all the questions. This is really relatable to the 12 mark, where it's talking about the character art, but also with direction as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching.